Hello and welcome everyone to IT Pro Guide. Mohammed Nias with you. In this video, you're gonna see how to set up a federation with Azure AD for Office 365 application. Now we can say it is Microsoft 365 applications. In the very first video of this series, we discussed about identity and access management. Identity and access management is all about right people have appropriate access to the technology resources. So policies and technologies to ensure that proper people in an organization have appropriate access to the technology resources. Hybrid identity is a solution from Microsoft for a common username and password, which is one of the policies or technologies that comes in identity and access management system to ensure right people have appropriate access to the technology resources. Once you decided to go to Office 365 applications, you need to use Azure AD because cloud applications like Exchange Online, SharePoint, Team, Yammer only authenticates through Microsoft Azure AD. And in your on-premises, you might have an Active Directory, and on-premises applications are using on-prem AD for authentications. So here is the solution with hybrid identity. Microsoft provides AD Connect, which is a tool free to download. You can install and configure password hash synchronization or pass-through authentication or federation. These three methods available to have a single sign-on capability so that you can have a common username for your on-premises application and cloud application. Password hash synchronization and pass-through authentication. We already saw how to do that in the previous videos. Now it is a turn for federation with Azure AD. So in the beginning, we will discuss what is ADFS and how it works with Azure AD. Then we're gonna see a step-by-step demo on how to set up ADFS and how to configure federation with Azure AD. First, let us understand what is ADFS. ADFS is a feature and a web service with Microsoft Windows Server that allow you to share your identity information outside a company network so that users in your organization can use partner applications or any cloud applications using one single username and password instead of having multiple usernames and passwords. To make it more clear, let us see how the cloud applications allow us to use a single sign-on with Facebook or Google identity. Look at this website which provide a login with Google option. So once I click in this login with Google option, you can see that it took me to the Google web page and it asked me to enter my Google identity. Now it asks me to enter the password here. So this actually makes my life easier and more secure because I don't need to remember username and password for each applications that I have. Instead of that, I can use my Google account to sign in all these applications. At the same time, my account is more secure because I have all the multi-factor authentication capabilities of Google for other cloud applications also. Now come to our scenario. You have a company username and password instead of Google, and it is authenticated by your on-premises Active Directory. Once you decided to have Office 365 in your organization, you have applications like Exchange, SharePoint, Yammer, and many other based upon your subscription. You cannot join these services with your local domain directory. Microsoft 365, Exchange Online, and other services use Azure AD. So in this case, we can use ADFS to authenticate users for cloud applications from your local directory. So once you federate your on-premises with Azure AD for Office 365 application, and when you try to sign into an Office 365 application, it's gonna take you to your organization sign-in page, that is ADFS web server in your on-premises. And once you enter your username and password and click on sign in, if you are authenticated, then it's gonna take you back to Microsoft Office 365 applications. So now the authentication has happened from on-premises and it's redirected to cloud applications. So after watching this video, you will know how to set up this. So the very first step when you decided to use federation with Azure AD as your hybrid identity solution for your Office 365 application to use a single sign-on capability is federation with Microsoft Azure AD and your local Active Directory. This can be done very easily. You can download Azure AD Connect. You can simply configure federation with Azure AD. And for this, you need a ADFS server in your on-premises. Once you have this federation setup with on-premises Active Directory and Microsoft Azure AD for your Office 365 applications, so then when your user try to log into Office 365 application, the device is going to redirect you to ADFS for authentication. Then the ADFS will talk to local Active Directory and then translate the information into claims. Claims means are the contents that are being exchanged between these two parties in this federation trust. So the claims are sent from ADFS to the device, then the device is gonna send them to the application to authenticate to the application. So this part is very important. The claims are sent from ADFS to the device, then the device is gonna send them to the application to authenticate to the application. So here in this case, it is Azure AD gonna receive the claims from the device, then Azure AD will authenticate you to the application. Let's get familiar with some of the new terms that comes in ADF. A claim provider and a relying party. A claim provider in this scenario is Active Directory, because Active Directory contain the attributes that needed for authentication, and claim provider or the Active Directory here gonna exchange this information to the relying party. Relying party here is Azure AD, which gonna accept these claims to authenticate to the application. A claim is what actually exchanged between a claim provider and a relying party. So you have claim rules so that you can decide what you want to share between a claim provider and a relying party. So a claim means it's an attribute that can identify an identity. A simple example is user principal name is an Active Directory attribute which can be shared from a claim provider, which means an on-premises Active Directory, to a relying party, that is Azure AD. Once you have federation setup ready with Azure AD and on-premises Active Directory, you can come to ADFS management. And when you look at this claim provider trust, you can see that from here you can see what are the rules that you have in claims. So you can add new rules like send LTAP attributes as a claims or send group membership as a claims. So this is gonna exchange between the provider, that is the on-premise Active Directory, to Azure AD. You have nothing to do here actually, because this is gonna set up by Azure AD Connect, which is a tool that we're gonna download and configure it. We will see how to do that in the step-by-step demo part. Let's move to the demo session, federation with ADFS. I have divided this demo into two sessions. In the first session, we're gonna set up ADFS in on-premises, and in the second session, we're gonna configure ADFS with Azure AD, and we're gonna test Office 365 login using local on-premises Active Directory. So in the first session, set up ADFS in on-premises. We have 3 steps to complete. So let's look at the lab setup I have. I have Windows Server 2019 domain controller, which is ready for the demo. Then I have a Windows Server 2019 for ADFS, which is just installed and joined with the domain controller. So my first requirement is a certificate. I need a certificate for ADFS web service. There are two options. I can use ADCS, Active Directory Certificate Service, and get an internal certificate for ADFS, but that is recommended only for the lab purpose. If you're gonna use this for production, then it is highly recommended to go for a SSL certificate from public certificate authority providers like GoDaddy or DigiCert. Anyway, both options are available in this video, so you can choose as your requirement. In the second step, we have to create a DNS record for internal and external, and you need to open port for ADFS, that is 443. Then in the third step, we're going to install and configure ADFS role in Windows Server 2019. Then we need to enable the single sign-on. Then we need to enable sign-on page. Then finally, we need to test the installation. Then we're going to complete session 1. So let us begin with the SSL certificate. It is a requirement for ADFS server. As I said, we have two choices, one for the internal lab purpose, that is we're going to use internal Active Directory Certificate service for our certificate requirement, or you can choose a public certificate authority so that you can have a certificate and your users can sign in from outside your organization also. So let us see first with a public certificate authority, then I will also show you how to create an SSL certificate with internal Active Directory Certificate service. To connect to the certificate services, open console, then from the console root, add a certificate of this local computer. We are working from ADFS server now. Select computer account, click next. Then finish, click OK. Now you have certificates in your console. So the first step is to create a certificate signing request. For that, go to all task, advanced operation, then create custom request. Click next. You can select proceed without enrollment policy, then click next. From the template, select legacy key, then click next. And now expand the details option, then click on the properties. You can give a friendly name. I'm going to create a wildcard so that I put star.m365proguide.com. Then you can add the subject name and the alternative name. For me, the common name is star.m365proguide.com. It can be adfs.m365proguide.com if I go for a normal SSL certificate. Then complete the details like organization and your state, your country details like this. Once you have all the information ready, then select the next tab, extensions, then expand key usage, select digital signature and encipher only, then add it to the selected options, then select private key, expand key options, change the key size to 4096 and make sure the key is exportable, the private key is exportable, so that you can use the same certificate in other ADFS servers also. Click OK. then click next, then click next. Now enter a file name so that your certificate signing request will be ready at this location. Click finish. Now go to the location, open wildcard request. This is the CSR with a notepad. Now copy the CSR and go to your certificate authority. For me, I'm going to use a Commodore SSL store, and the first step is to enter the CSR, and I'm going to use a CNAME authentication because I have to prove that the domain belongs to me. I have different methods and I'm going to use a CNAME authentication. I'm not going to focus much on these steps. I just want to show you like what are the steps involved in this. Then select your server. It is Microsoft web server. So select Microsoft IIS 5x and later. Then click continue. Now you can see that the certificate request is okay, but it need to be verified. So I need to create a CNAME in my DNS manager. So let's do that. Now I have all the information that required for the domain verification, and now you can see that the SSL certificate verification is completed. I can download the certificate now. Once you have the certificate, the next step is to install the certificate in ADFS server. So you can see that this is the certificate I need to be installed. So let's install this certificate to the local machine and place it in the personal folder, then click next, then click finish. Now the certificate is ready. You can verify the certificate from the personal folder. You can see the certificate status is okay. If you don't have a public SSL certificate, you can still try ADFS with internal SSL certificate. For that, you need to install Active Directory Certificate Service. In this demo, I have installed ADCS service in our domain controller. So that part is not in this demo, but I will show you how to create SSL certificate using ADCS installed in domain controller. So the first step is to create a template for ADFS SSL certificate. For that, go to Active Directory Certificate Service. Then click on the certification authority. Now we work from domain controller. Then expand it. Go to certificate template. You can see we have a web server template. We're going to duplicate that one. Simply right click and select manage, so you will get the list expanded. And now select web server and click on duplicate manage. Now go to the settings. You can see the template display name is something else, so we can change it to ADFS. You can control the validity period and also the renewal period here. Then go to the request handling and make sure you select allow private key to be exported. The purpose is to use the same certificate for other ADFS server also. Then go to the security and add domain computers. Then click OK and select enroll enabled for domain computers. Then click OK. Now the ADFS template is ready. Now go to the certificate template folder and issue this certificate template. Select ADFS template, then click OK. Now come back to the ADFS server then open certificates from the console. Now from the personal folder, right click, then select all tasks and select request a new certificate, then click next. Now you can see that we have ADFS template here. Select ADFS template and you can see that more information is required. So at this point you have to enter the URL, the fully qualified domain names that you need in the SSL certificate. So it can be, in the previous example we show with the wildcard. If you are not using a wildcard certificate, you can simply type the fully qualified domain name. Here for example, adfs.m365procguide.com going to be my common name, and I can add alternative names also to the SSL certificate. The capacity of alternative names depends upon the certificate that you bought. It can be 5 or 3 or more than that. Once you have the common name and alternative names ready, give a friendly name so that you can recognize the certificate. Then go to private key option, expand key option, then make the private key exportable. It's already exportable because we did this from the template. Now let us click on enroll so that we get a certificate in the personal folder. Just look at it, you can see that the certificate status is okay, the path is okay. So we have SSL certificate ready. The next step is to set up a DNS. So here I'm going to use adfs.m365procguide.com as my fully qualified domain name to access the ADFS server. But the actual ADFS server name is adfs1.m365procguide.com because I have a plan to add more ADFS servers to this form. So we need to create a CNAME record so that open DNS manager from domain controller, then go to DNS manager. From here select forward lookup zone, go to m365procguide.com, then create a CNAME that is ADFS for the target host, that is adfs1.m365procguide.com. So when we configure ADFS server, we're gonna use adfs.m365procguide.com as a fully qualified domain name to access ADFS web service URLs. We're gonna start with the installation of ADFS in Windows Server 2019. The steps are the same for Server 2016 and 19. So let us install ADFS role in this server. This is ADFS server joined with the Active Directory domain controller. To install, go to manage, then click on add roles and features, then click next. From the roles, select Active Directory Federation Services, then click next. Then complete the wizard. Click install option. Now the installation of Active Directory Federation Services has completed. Now let us complete the configuration that required for ADFS after this installation. For that, click on the configure the federation service on this server, and this is my first federation server in this Active Directory. So I'm gonna select the first option, then click next. Provide your domain credentials, then click next. Now select the SSL certificate You can see the Federation service name fetch from the SSL certificate, but I have to make it ADFS. This happened because I'm using a wildcard certificate. Then you can mention some friendly name in the Federation service display name, which will be displayed in the ADFS web page. So the users will come to know this name in the ADFS sign-in page. Then here you can see that create a group manager service account is not appearing because the KDS root key is not set it up. So we need to set up it now. It is simple. You just need to run a command from the PowerShell. Let's do it now. Run this command from PowerShell. So now the KDS root key has set it. Now click next. Now we can see that we can create a group manager service account, give a meaningful name. Then click next. I'm going to use Windows internal database, but for protection it is highly recommended you to go with SQL Server database. Now review your selections, then click next. Now click to configure. Now the configuration has completed. Now if you go to the server manager, from the tools you can see that ADFS management has added, and this is the ADFS management window in Windows Server 2019. Now once you install the ADFS, the sign-in page is not automatically enabled. So to enable the sign-in page, you need to run a PowerShell command. Let's do that now. Then enter. Now the sign-in page has enabled. Now what you see is the test page available from ADFS web server. So you can browse this page and try to sign in with any user account in your Active Directory. So I'm going to try with one of the user account, and you can see that I signed in, which means that the ADFS setup up to is okay. It's fine. So now it is time to move to the configuration side with the Azure AD. Now the on-premises setup is ready. Now we need to configure ADFS with Azure AD. So in this session 2, the first step is to add a custom domain name. So here my custom domain name is m365proguide.com, and the initial domain name or the tenant name is cloudlabs365.onmicrosoft.com. So once I add this custom domain name, that is m365proguide.com, to my tenant, the next step is to set up Azure AD connector. So Azure AD connect is a .exe file. You can install it in ADFS server so that you can configure a federation with a wizard, and that is very easy actually. You can just make your choice and complete the federation with Azure AD. Then once you have a setup, the next step, of course, it is to test the cloud application using on-premises ADFS authentication. Now this is my Office 365 admin center. If we go to the billings, then purchase services, you can see the available licenses. I have 2 trial licenses with Business Standard and Microsoft 365 E5 licenses. And I have some users. These are cloud users. The first step I'm going to do is to add a custom domain. For that, go to settings, then from the domain, I want to add m365proguide.com. That is the domain I have in my on-premises. Click use this domain, then verify it. As I'm using GoDaddy as my DNS manager, I can simply connect and verify it, and I can activate the records also in the same way. Click to configure the records. Now the domain setup has completed. Now let us log into Azure AD Admin Center. You can see that there is a custom domain option, and you can see the custom domain has added, that is m365proguide.com. Now let us download Azure AD Connect. For that, go to Azure AD Connect, then download Azure AD Connect. Click to download, then save it, then run Azure AD Connect. I'm running this in my Active Directory server. You can run this in a separate server, or you can run it in an Active Directory server. Now the setup is installing. Once the installation complete, it pop up, and let us configure it, agree with the license terms, and let's go for a customized setup, because the express setup will configure password hash synchronization, and leave everything untouched and click install. Now the required components has installed. Here our choice is federation with ADFS. You can see that the requirements has mentioned in the bottom. Let's click next and connect it to Azure Active Directory. Enter your credentials, then click next. It should be global administrator credentials. Then enter your on-premises Active Directory administrator credentials. So Azure AD gonna create an account with sufficient permission to synchronize periodically between your on-prem and Azure AD. Then click next. Now you can see that m365proguide.com has verified, so that is fine. Then select the default and click next. If you want, you can make changes, unless you can leave everything untouched and click next. I'm gonna synchronize all users and device, then click next. So I'm not going for any optional features. Now it is time to enter our domain administrator credentials. I have an existing ADFS form, so I'm gonna select the one I have, then enter ADFS server name, then click OK, then click next. Now select your domain, Azure AD domain, then click next. So the federate setup is going on now with on-premises. Now it is ready to configure. You can see that the configuration summary. Now the configuration has completed. Before you click to verify, you have two steps pending. One is to open port 443 from outside if you're going to do this for a production environment. Then the second step is to add the public IP address to your DNS manager for external access. Now let us click next and verify the connectivity. I have created a DNS record for internal and external, so I selected both. Then click verify the connectivity. So the connectivity is successful, but I just missed IPv6. That is fine. Let's exit this. Now if you go back to Azure AD portal, you can see from the Azure AD Connect that we have one domain which is in federation with Azure AD, and you can see the last sync status also here. When you go to the users, you can see that we have the user with Windows Server AD source in our users list, which means that it has synchronized users to Azure AD and Office 365. You can verify this from Microsoft 365 Admin Center also. Let us assign a license to this account. For that, go to the licenses from Admin Center, then assign license, then click Save Changes. Now let us try to access Office application. So the first page that you have is from Microsoft Online. Enter your username. Now you can see that this is going to take you to your organization sign-in page, and here you have to enter your password. So this page now you received from on-premises ADFS server. It authenticate with Active Directory, then your device gonna return to Microsoft Online, that is Azure AD authentication. Now you are authenticated, then you can access your Office applications. So we have done with federation with Azure AD, so that all the users in your on-premises Active Directory to access Office 365 application, they can use their username and password in their local on-premises Active Directory. So Microsoft Office 365 authenticate from your on-premises Active Directory and authenticate your access to cloud applications. So what you saw now is just instead of authenticating from your cloud Microsoft Azure AD, the authentication has passed to your local on-premises Active Directory. But it is not addressing the potential requirement for stronger authentication for accessing Office 365 application or any other application that comes from the cloud. So we need to set up multi-factor authentication to meet a stronger authentication requirement. So in the coming video, we're going to see how to set up MFA with ADFS and Azure AD. Thank you for watching this video, and for more videos, subscribe my YouTube channel.